The ultimate Deathworlders, 5 to 7 minute hook. The galaxy was a vast and dangerous place, filled with countless species and worlds that were far from kind. But on one planet, the Deathworlders had risen to the top. They were the strongest, the fiercest, and the most feared creatures in the universe. Their planet, harsh and unwelcoming, had shaped them into warriors like no others. Life here was a constant battle, every creature in the world fighting to survive. And the Deathworlders had proven they were the best at it. This planet, known as Vrock, was a desolate place. Its atmosphere was toxic, its creatures were deadly, and its environment was filled with extreme temperatures, savage storms, and landscapes that could kill a lesser being in an instant. But for the Deathworlders, this was home. They had adapted, evolved, and become the ultimate predators of their world. Every test their planet threw at them, they conquered. From giant beasts that roamed the land to deadly plants that would pierce the skin with poison, the Deathworlders had mastered it all. They were unmatched in their strength, speed, and intelligence. The Deathworlders had long been the dominant species on their planet. Their history was filled with stories of battles and wars, each one more brutal than the last. They had faced off against all kinds of creatures, from massive predators that could tear apart a mountain to deadly alien invaders who thought they could take over their planet. But every time, the Deathworlders stood victorious. They were not just warriors. They were survivors, born and bred in the harshest conditions imaginable. They didn't rely on advanced technology or magical powers like some other species. No, they relied on their bodies, their instincts, and their will to survive. They had learned to use their environment to their advantage, turning the very dangers of their world into weapons. If you wanted to defeat a Deathworlder, you had to be faster, stronger, and smarter than them. And no one had ever been able to do that. Until now. On this particular day, the Deathworlders were gathered around their battle arena, a place where they tested their strength and skill against each other. It was a tradition, an ancient practice to prove who was the strongest. They watched as their warriors fought in hand-to-hand combat, each one pushing themselves to the limit. The crowd cheered, the air thick with tension. This was the ultimate test, the ultimate display of their power. But as the battle raged on, something strange happened. A signal, weak at first, began to pulse in the sky. It was faint, like a whisper in the air, barely noticeable. The Deathworlders didn't pay it much attention at first. After all, they had dealt with many things before: alien ships, strange signals, and threats from the farthest corners of the galaxy. But this one felt different. It was a signal of distress, a call for help. The Deathworlders' leaders paused, their eyes scanning the sky. They knew this wasn't a random signal. It wasn't the usual chatter of galactic trade routes or alien ships passing through their territory. No, this was something more urgent, something important. They quickly turned their attention to the source of the signal, trying to decode the message. It was coming from a planet not too far away, one that had been long abandoned by many species. It was a world on the edge of the galaxy, a place no one had paid much attention to for centuries. But now, someone needed help. And the message was clear. We are in danger. We need help. We can't survive alone. The plea was desperate, filled with fear and desperation. The Deathworlders were no strangers to danger, but this was something different. They had no idea who could be in such trouble. Who would be foolish enough to call for help from a planet like that? A planet that was known to be inhospitable, filled with death and ruin. A planet where only the bravest, or the most foolish, would dare to step foot. The message lingered in the air, hanging like a storm cloud over the battlefield. The Deathworlders' leader, a towering figure with scars from countless battles, stepped forward. His name was Vrax, and his reputation was legendary. His strength was unmatched, and his courage had seen him through countless battles. But now, even he hesitated. He looked out at the stars, his mind racing. Who could possibly be in danger on a planet like that? And why were they calling for help? The The warriors around him whispered among themselves, wondering if it was some kind of trick. But Vrax could sense it in his bones. This was no trap. This was real. Someone out there needed help, and they were asking for the Deathworlders. Vrax turned to his comrades. "We will answer their call," he said. "We will show them what it means to face a Deathworlder." The Deathworlders had always been the apex predators of their world. But now, they were about to encounter something they had never faced before, the unknown. The call to action. Entering the unknown. Vrax and his warriors had long faced dangers that would make other species tremble in fear. Alien invaders, massive beasts, and hostile environments. They had battled them all and emerged victorious. But this was different. The distress signal was coming from a place that was as hostile as any Deathworlder could imagine. And yet, someone was desperate enough to ask for their help. The Deathworlders had never been a group known for offering aid. Their existence had been shaped by survival, their minds hardened by the unforgiving nature of their homeworld. To help another species, especially one unknown to them, was not something they typically considered. But there was something in the message that stirred something deep within them. A primal urge to protect, to dominate, to conquer whatever lay ahead. It was in their blood, in their very bones. "We go," Vrax said, his voice low but firm. His eyes scanned the group of warriors gathered around him. They looked to him for guidance, their fierce faces set with resolve. They were ready to face whatever dangers awaited them. Within moments, their battle-hardened ships were ready for departure. These were no ordinary vessels. They were constructed from the toughest materials found on Vrak, designed to withstand the most hostile environments the galaxy had to offer. But even the Deathworlders knew that this mission would be different. The galaxy was vast, and they had never ventured to the edges of known space before. They had no idea what awaited them on that distant, forsaken planet. As they flew through the stars, the warriors were silent, each one lost in their own thoughts. Vrax stood at the helm, his hands gripping the controls with practiced ease. The ship sped through the darkness of space, the only sound the hum of the engines and the occasional crackle of static as they approached the source of the distress signal. The planet loomed ahead, a dark sphere against the backdrop of the endless stars. Its surface was a wasteland, scarred by ancient storms and shattered landscapes. From a distance, it looked like a world abandoned to time, a place where life had long since faded. And yet, someone still lived there, someone who needed help. Vrax could feel the weight of his decision bearing down on him. He had led his warriors through countless battles. But this was new. His mind raced with questions. Who could survive on a planet like that? And why were they reaching out to the Deathworlders? There were plenty of species in the galaxy capable of surviving on harsh worlds, but none quite like the Deathworlders. They were the embodiment of survival, the ultimate warriors born from the most extreme conditions the universe could offer. The ship descended through the planet's atmosphere, the dark clouds swirling ominously around them. The air was thick with pollution, and the temperature plummeted as they made their way toward the surface. The Deathworlders had trained for every environment imaginable, but this place was unlike anything they had ever experienced. The very atmosphere seemed hostile, as if it were pushing them back, daring them to continue. As the ship touched down, Vrax and his warriors disembarked, their boots sinking into the rough, rocky ground. The air was sharp, bitter, and carried the faint smell of decay. The sky above them was overcast, and the distant sound of howling winds filled the air. This was a place where life struggled to survive, a place where only the strongest could endure. But they were not here to survive. They were here to conquer. Vrax's eyes scanned the barren landscape, his instincts alert. They had landed near the source of the distress signal, but there was no sign of life. The planet was eerily silent, the only sound being the crunch of their boots on the rocky terrain. The group moved cautiously, their weapons drawn, eyes scanning for any movement. This was a dangerous place, and they couldn't afford to let their guard down. Suddenly, a shape appeared on the horizon. It was small at first, a silhouette against the darkening sky. As they got closer, Vrax could make out the details, a humanoid figure, barely standing, stumbling toward them. It was one of the aliens, their bodies thin and frail, clearly struggling to survive in this harsh environment. The alien's eyes locked onto Vrax, and in that moment, something strange happened. The Deathworlder warriors, known for their intimidating presence and relentless strength, were met with something they hadn't expected: fear. The alien's eyes were wide with terror, their body trembling. "Help, please," the alien whispered, its voice hoarse and weak. Vrax stepped forward, his gaze never leaving the alien. This was the one who had sent the distress signal, the one who had called for the Deathworlders to come and save them. The situation was clear now. They had arrived in time to save this creature, but there was no telling what dangers lurked ahead. The Deathworlders' reputation had always been built on their ability to endure, to fight, and to conquer. But here, in the depths of an unknown, hostile world, they were about to discover that their true test had only just begun. The alien's desperate plea. The alien, frail and trembling, slowly raised its hands in a gesture of peace. Its eyes, wide with fear, were fixed on Vrax as if it was seeing a lifeline in the middle of a storm. It had called for help, but not just any help. Help from the Deathworlders, beings legendary for their strength, toughness, and ability to survive in the harshest of environments. Vrax looked down at the alien, his expression unreadable. His warriors stood behind him, tense, their eyes scanning the area for any sign of danger. They were ready for a fight, as always, but they weren't sure what they were up against. This alien, whatever it was, seemed like a survivor, weak but somehow resilient. The very fact that it had survived long enough to send out a distress signal meant it had a will to live that few beings could match. "Why us?" Vrax's voice was low, carrying a note of suspicion. His people had never been known to help others unless there was something to gain. The idea of offering aid without reward was foreign to them. The alien's voice was barely a whisper, but it carried the weight of years of suffering. We didn't know who else to call. Our planet, it's dying. The storms, the creatures, the toxic atmosphere. We've been fighting to survive for generations. But now it's too much. You're the only ones who can save us." Vrax's brow furrowed. The Deathworlders had never been ones to give anything away freely, and certainly not to the weak. But this was different. There was a sense of desperation in the alien's voice that struck a chord within him. For the first time, the Deathworlder leader found himself questioning his instincts. The Deathworlders were survivors, but did that mean they had to leave others to perish? Before Vrax could respond, a distant, ear-piercing roar split the air, sending a ripple of tension through the group. The ground shook beneath their feet, and the alien staggered, clearly terrified. "Get down," Vrax barked. Instantly, his warriors crouched, weapons raised, scanning the barren landscape for any sign of movement. Vrax's instincts were sharp. He knew that noise. It was the sound of something dangerous, something huge. The alien gasped, pointing toward a distant ridge. "It's coming. It's coming for us." The ground trembled again, and then, from the horizon, a massive creature emerged. A towering behemoth, its body covered in jagged scales and thick armor. Its eyes glowed with an unnatural hunger, and its roar rattled the very air around them. The creature was massive, easily 10 times the size of a Deathworlder, with claws like razors and a mouth wide enough to swallow a person whole. Vrax's warriors immediately fell into formation, their battle-hardened minds already calculating their attack strategies. Vrax didn't hesitate. He raised his weapon and signaled for his team to move out. "Prepare for battle," he commanded. As the beast charged toward them with terrifying speed, the Deathworlders stood firm, their eyes locked on the creature. It was big, but they were Deathworlders. Strength, endurance, and ferocity were in their blood. They lived for moments like this. The alien watched, its wide eyes fixed on the warriors. It had never seen anything like the Deathworlders before, beings who seemed entirely at home in a world that was supposed to be a death sentence. The alien had heard stories of their power, of their ability to thrive in the most dangerous environments. But now it was witnessing it firsthand. The Deathworlders moved with precision. Vrax and his warriors charged forward, attacking the creature with terrifying force. Their weapons crackled with energy, their movements sharp and coordinated. The creature roared in pain as the first blast struck it in the side, but it wasn't enough to bring it down. The beast retaliated, swinging its massive claws. Vrax narrowly dodged the strike, his warriors quick to react, firing again and again. The alien watched as the Deathworlders danced around the creature, their speed and strength overwhelming the beast, despite its size and power. Then, with a well-placed strike, Vrax drove his weapon deep into the creature's heart, and it let out one final roar before collapsing, dead. The battlefield fell silent. Vrax stood over the fallen creature, his chest heaving as he caught his breath. His warriors stood in a loose circle around him, their weapons at the ready. They were the Deathworlders, proud, fierce, and unstoppable. The alien, trembling with a mix of awe and terror, approached them slowly, its eyes wide as it took in the scene. "You?" The alien whispered, its voice trembling. "You killed it. You saved us." Vrax didn't speak at first. He glanced at his warriors, then back at the alien. The creature had called for help, and they had responded. But they weren't done yet. This was just the beginning. The true test was yet to come. "This is just one battle," Vrax said finally. "Your planet is still dying. We'll help you, but it will take more than strength to fix this." The alien nodded, its gratitude clear. It had called for Deathworlders, and it had gotten more than it bargained for. But they had saved it from one nightmare. The question now was whether they could save the planet, and whether the Deathworlders would prove to be the true power that even the universe itself feared. The Deathworlders' reluctant promise. After the battle, the alien stood in the shadow of the Deathworlders, still trembling but slowly gathering its courage. The enormous creature that had once posed such a dire threat now lay lifeless at their feet, a testament to the overwhelming power of the Deathworlders. Vrax, the leader of the Deathworlders, surveyed the aftermath with a grim satisfaction. It wasn't often that they faced something that could challenge them. But this world, this planet, was full of surprises. The alien, whose species had been on the brink of extinction, now looked at Vrax with a mixture of awe and uncertainty. "You've saved us," it said, voice quivering. "But we are still not safe. The storms, the toxic air, the creatures. There's no end to the dangers here." Vrax turned to face the alien, his expression unreadable. He didn't show emotions, not even in the face of gratitude. He was a warrior, and warriors didn't waste time with pleasantries. But this was different. The alien's words struck a chord with him. They had fought the creature, yes, but there was a greater threat still hanging over them. A threat that wasn't as easily defeated as a mere beast. "We know," Vrax replied flatly, "but we're not here to play hero. You called for help, and we'll help, for a price." The alien's heart sank. It had hoped, in its desperation, that the Deathworlders might offer something more than just cold, calculated help. But even after the battle, even after the alien had witnessed their strength, Vrax's words stung. "You will help?" the alien asked, voice trembling. "Even if there is no reward?" "We will help," Vrax affirmed. "But don't mistake that for kindness. The universe doesn't care for weaklings. We don't help unless there's something to gain. You'll need to prove you can survive. Only then will we help you fully." The alien nodded hesitantly. "What do you want?" "We need resources," Vrax said. "Something valuable. Something that can make it worth our time. Your planet may be dying, but if there's anything left, we'll take it." The alien stood frozen for a moment, the weight of the offer hanging in the air. It was clear that the Deathworlders had no interest in sentimental gestures or rescue missions for the sake of mercy. They were survivors, and they expected something in return. But the alien had no choice. This was their only chance. The storms, the creatures, the toxic atmosphere, nothing would survive unless they made this deal with the Deathworlders. We have resources, the alien said. Not much, but some. Our planet's core is rich in energy that could power entire fleets, but the storms have made it nearly impossible to harvest. Vrax's eyes narrowed as he processed the information. Energy-rich resources. That was a deal worth considering. The Deathworlders had been in worse situations, but the thought of valuable resources was enough to shift the balance of their decision. We'll help you, Vrax said after a long pause. But don't think this means you've earned our trust yet. We'll help, but only because it benefits us. Keep your side of the bargain, and we'll see this through. The alien, still weak but now filled with a sense of renewed hope, bowed its head. We will. I swear it. Without another word, Vrax motioned for his warriors to follow. The team began to move, their pace steady and unhurried. They had a mission now, a mission that required more than just brute strength. It would take strategy, resourcefulness, and precision. They would help the alien, but it wasn't going to be easy. As they made their way toward the heart of the planet, the alien followed close behind, still processing the weight of what had just happened. It had called for help, and it had received it, but in a way it hadn't expected. The Deathworlders had shown their power, but their promise of help came at a cost. The alien wasn't sure if they would make it, but one thing was certain. The Deathworlders had just shown them that survival wasn't about being kind, it was about being strong. And on this harsh, dying world, that was the only thing that truly mattered. The price of survival. The air was thick with tension as Vrax led his team through the jagged landscape of the alien planet. The winds howled in the distance, carrying with them the toxic clouds that had ravaged the surface for eons. The alien species that had once called this place home were now few in number, their bodies weakened by the harsh environment. But even in their fragile state, they were determined to survive, especially now that they had struck a deal with the Deathworlders. The alien followed behind, still shaken by the gravity of their agreement. The storm had been fierce, but their pact with Vrax had brought a sliver of hope. Yet, as the Deathworlders moved with military precision, the alien couldn't help but feel a gnawing sense of unease. What if they couldn't deliver the resources Vrax had demanded? What if the cost of survival was more than they could bear? Vrax, sensing the alien's hesitation, turned and fixed his piercing gaze on them. You seem unsettled. You didn't think there would be a cost, did you? The alien flinched, but didn't speak. The reality of their situation had set in. They were at the mercy of the Deathworlders now, and every step they took brought them closer to the planet's core, where the precious resources lay buried. If they failed, if they couldn't meet the Deathworlders' expectations, their deal would be worthless. We've given you a chance, Vrax continued, his voice as cold and calculating as the harsh environment around them. Don't waste it. If you want to survive, you will deliver. The alien nodded, but the unease still lingered. The journey to the planet's core was treacherous, and the storms were only getting worse. Every step they took brought them closer to the epicenter of danger. Massive fissures in the ground, poisonous creatures lurking in the shadows, and the ever-present threat of environmental collapse. But as much as the alien wanted to voice their doubts, they couldn't afford to show weakness. They had made a promise, and now they had to fulfill it. The Deathworlders had shown them what true power looked like, but the question remained. Would they be able to harness that power to save their species, or would they be consumed by it? As they reached the heart of the storm, the alien finally spoke. The core is just ahead. But there's something you need to know. The alien paused, gathering their thoughts. The storms have only grown stronger. The resources you're after, they're not just buried in the earth. They're protected by something. Vrax raised an eyebrow. Something. The alien nodded. A creature. One unlike any other. It guards the core. It's more powerful than anything we faced before, and it's not afraid to kill to protect what's inside. A chill ran down Vrax's spine. He wasn't easily shaken, but the alien's warning was enough to make him rethink their plan. The thought of a creature powerful enough to challenge even the Deathworlders was unsettling, to say the least. "We're not afraid of monsters," Vrax said, though there was a hint of uncertainty in his voice. "But you're saying this one is different?" "Yes," the alien replied. "It's unlike anything we've ever seen. It's a guardian, a creature born from the very planet itself. It won't just attack. It'll destroy anything that comes close." The team paused for a moment, their eyes scanning the horizon. The storm clouds were thick, but beyond them, they could see the faint glow of the core. The resources they had come for were tantalizingly close, but so was the guardian that would stop them. "This will be a challenge," Vrax said. "But we didn't come this far to turn back now. We'll face this guardian. Together." The alien's heart raced. They had seen the Deathworlders fight, and they had seen their strength. But even they could be pushed to their limits, and this creature, this guardian, was not something they could take lightly. "What should we do?" the alien asked, voice barely a whisper. Vrax looked at them, his expression unreadable. "Stay close and follow our lead. If we fail, we all die. But if we succeed, the universe will never forget what happened here." With a shared sense of determination, the team pressed forward, their steps heavy with the weight of what lay ahead. They were on the edge of victory or destruction. The planet's fate, and their own, rested on the next few moments. As they neared the core, the air grew colder and the ground beneath their feet trembled. The Guardian was near, watching them, waiting for them to make their move. But the Deathworlders were not afraid. They had faced death before, and now they were ready to face it again. The Guardian awaits. The wind howled through the jagged rock formations, a constant reminder of the planet's hostile nature. Vrax's team moved cautiously, their every step calculated, every breath held. The alien who had guided them was now on edge, constantly glancing over their shoulder as if expecting something to leap from the shadows at any moment. The tension was unbearable. The ground beneath their feet trembled once again. It wasn't the storm, it was something far worse. Something that had been watching them since the moment they set foot on the planet. Vrax held up his hand, signaling his team to stop. He motioned for the alien guide to step forward. "Tell us about this guardian. How do we defeat it?" The alien swallowed, clearly afraid, but they didn't hesitate. "It's not like anything you've ever encountered before. It's a creature of pure aggression, born from the planet's core. It's got claws sharper than any blade, and its hide is tougher than your strongest armor. But it's not just its strength that makes it dangerous. It's intelligent. It knows how to strategize, how to anticipate your moves. It won't just fight us. It will try to outsmart us." Vrax's jaw tightened. He had fought creatures that were stronger, faster, and more dangerous than anything this world could throw at him. But what the alien described was something different. Something that could think, plan, and exploit their weaknesses. A creature like that was a challenge, even for a seasoned Deathworlder. "We're not here to back down," Vrax said, his voice low but steady. "We came for the resources, and we're taking them, no matter what stands in our way." The alien nodded, but there was fear in their eyes. "The core's just beyond this ridge. But the Guardian, it's probably waiting for us. Once we cross this line, we're in its territory." The team moved again, each step more cautious than the last. The air grew colder, the ground more unstable. They could hear the distant rumble of the storm, but it was the silence around them that was more unnerving. No birds, no creatures moving in the distance, just the sound of their own footsteps, echoing through the rocky terrain. They reached the ridge. The core of the planet lay ahead, an eerie glow rising from a deep chasm in the earth. But before they could take another step, they heard it, a low guttural growl. The sound seemed to reverberate through the air, chilling them to the bone. From the darkness, it emerged. The Guardian, a creature unlike anything they had ever seen. Its massive form was covered in thick, scaled armor, with spikes protruding from every angle. Its eyes gleamed with an unnatural intelligence, and its mouth, lined with rows of razor-sharp teeth, opened in a silent roar. Vrax's team immediately fell into formation, weapons ready. But Vrax could feel the weight of the situation. This was no ordinary monster. This was a predator with a purpose. "Stay focused," Vrax ordered, his voice calm but urgent. "We kill it, or we die trying. This is what we've trained for." The creature's eyes locked onto Vrax's team, and it began to circle them, its steps slow and deliberate. It wasn't charging, but it was watching, waiting for them to make a mistake. The alien guide backed away, trembling. "It's too strong. You won't win. It's invincible." Vrax didn't take his eyes off the creature. He could sense its movements, feel the tension in the air as it waited for the perfect moment to strike. He wasn't afraid, but he was cautious. This was a battle that would require everything they had. "Listen up," Vrax said, speaking in a low voice to his team. "We need to keep it distracted, keep it moving. If it gets too close, we're dead. We need to use the terrain to our advantage." The team nodded in unison. Each member was skilled, each one a Deathworlder in their own right. But this creature, it was something else. The odds were stacked against them, but they had no choice. They had come too far to turn back now. Vrax made the first move. He sprinted toward the edge of the chasm, leading the Guardian away from the rest of the team. The creature followed, but it was deliberate, as if it knew that Vrax was the real threat. The rest of the team split up, taking positions on higher ground, ready to fire on the Guardian the moment it took the bait. The Guardian growled again, a sound that seemed to vibrate in the bones of everyone who heard it. It paused, then charged, moving with incredible speed for its size. It leaped at Vrax, its claws outstretched, aiming for his throat. Vrax was ready. He rolled to the side, just barely avoiding the creature's deadly strike. The force of the Guardian's attack sent shockwaves through the ground, causing rocks to crumble and fall into the chasm below. Now the fight had begun in earnest. The Guardian wasn't just a creature of brute force. It was agile, fast, and relentless. It attacked with precision, its claws slashing through the air, barely missing Vrax as he dodged and countered. "Now," Vrax shouted. The team opened fire. The weapon blasts hit the Guardian's thick hide, but they barely left a scratch. It didn't even flinch. It turned its gaze to the team, its eyes burning with rage. Then, in a sudden movement, the Guardian lunged again, this time aiming for the rest of the team. But just as it was about to strike, Vrax made his move. With a calculated leap, he closed the distance between him and the Guardian. He swung his blade with all his might, aiming for the creature's neck. The strike connected, and for the first time, the Guardian recoiled, a deafening roar escaping its mouth. The creature staggered back, but it wasn't finished. It was more enraged than ever. The battle was far from over. The Guardian was relentless, and Vrax's team had no choice but to keep fighting. But as the creature howled in pain and fury, one thing became clear: they had just begun to scratch the surface of its true power. And the price of survival would be higher than they ever imagined. The final confrontation, a battle for survival. The ground beneath them rumbled again, louder this time. The Guardian had recovered from Vrax's strike, and its eyes glowed with a primal rage that seemed to ripple through the air. The team, though skilled and experienced, could feel the weight of this fight. The odds were stacked high against them, but there was no turning back. Vrax's grip on his blade tightened. His breath came in steady bursts. Every movement calculated. He knew that in order to survive this, he would have to outthink the Guardian, not just overpower it. The creature lunged at the team again, its powerful limbs slicing through the air with terrifying speed. Vrax shouted, "Move! Split up!" The team scattered, each member taking a different direction, trying to confuse the Guardian. But the creature was smart. It anticipated every move, its eyes never leaving its prey. It seemed to be calculating the best way to strike each one of them, planning their downfall with a terrifying sense of precision. "Cover fire!" Vrax yelled as he ran toward a large rock formation nearby. He needed to create some distance between himself and the Guardian, something to give him a moment to regroup. The team fired again, but this time, they aimed for its joints, its underbelly, the weak points. The shots connected, and the Guardian let out a shriek of pain. But it didn't stop. It was enraged now, and every blow it landed on the ground seemed to shake the very core of the planet. Vrax darted forward, jumping behind a rock pillar as the Guardian charged again. With a grunt, he lifted a long-range grenade launcher from his pack. The weapon hummed as it powered up. This was their chance, the only one they might get. "Team, get ready," Vrax muttered under his breath. "This is it." With a steady hand, he aimed the grenade launcher at the Guardian's exposed flank. The weapon discharged, sending a powerful round straight into the creature's side. The explosion rang out, echoing across the rocky landscape. For a moment, everything was silent. Then, the Guardian let out an ear-splitting roar, stumbling backward from the impact. The blast had damaged its thick armor, but it was still far from defeated. It was now even more determined to destroy them, its eyes burning with an intensity that made Vrax's heart race. It charged once more, and this time, it seemed even faster, more unpredictable. Vrax knew they had to end this battle before it was too late. He gritted his teeth, running toward the creature, using the terrain to his advantage. As the Guardian lunged, Vrax dove to the side, narrowly missing its claws. He turned quickly, spotting a narrow gap in the creature's armor, a weak spot at the joint where its leg met its body. "Now!" Vrax roared. The team opened fire again, aiming for the vulnerable spot. The Guardian howled, its body jerking as it tried to defend itself. It was slower now, its movements more labored. The team's combined assault was starting to take its toll. Vrax, using every ounce of his training, dashed forward once more. This time, he leaped high, aiming for the exposed joint. With a mighty swing, he drove his blade deep into the Guardian's vulnerable side. The creature let out a blood-curdling scream, its body spasming. It staggered and collapsed to the ground, its mighty form finally succumbing to the combined efforts of the Deathworlders. The air was thick with silence. Vrax stood over the fallen Guardian, his chest heaving with exhaustion. His team approached cautiously, weapons at the ready, just in case the creature had any final tricks up its sleeve. But it was done. The Guardian was dead. "We did it," one of his team members said, her voice shaky, but filled with relief. Vrax nodded, but his mind was already on the next step. They had survived this battle, but there would be more ahead. They had come to this world for its resources, but this fight had proven that it was a place of deadly, unpredictable danger. And the universe, it would never stop throwing challenges their way. "The planet's ours now," Vrax said, his voice steely and determined. "But we have to move quickly. We're not the only ones who want what's here." The team regrouped, taking a moment to catch their breath. But they knew there was no time to waste. The mission wasn't over. They had defeated the Guardian, but the universe was full of threats, and the Deathworlders were always ready to face them. And as Vrax looked at the stars above, he knew that this victory was just the beginning of a much bigger journey. Whatever the universe threw at them, they would be ready.